Well, that's his thing. That's something that he would.
I mean, under what circumstances would you do it?
Because with signing, I can communicate faster. For instance, go to the blah 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 if I'm typing it, but instead I could just sign it real quickly. I mean, it's what I'm more fluent in. It's a personal preference maybe, but there's others out there that would agree. And also, I'd like to add to that, for some deaf people, they prefer signing in American Sign Language because that's their first language, whereas English is their second language, and it's much more difficult for them to find the right words. And so then when they're typing in English, it may not make sense to an English user because it's not their first language. Does that make sense? And they identify better and more clear with sign language.
Do you use your faces differently with somebody who's hearing impaired than you do with somebody who can hear? Do you use your face as an information channel that requires the other person to also be hearing impaired?
Say that one more time.
Do you communicate more with your face than if you're talking to another deaf person?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Facial expression is actually part of the grammar of American Sign Language.
But there's also just watching.
But there's also,
enjoy the
just
game.
watching your friend enjoy the
Watching
game.
me enjoy
How
the
cool would
game.
that be if they could, if we could see each other?
Part of the fun.
The facial expression would be part of the fun there.
Do hearing people seem to have wooden faces?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah. Greg here. When I go to parties at RIT and stuff, I see a lot of hearing people playing games there, and they don't really, make faces. They're all very serious when they're playing the games.
Some of these questions are a result of us wanting to have deaf characters in our game, and so as someone who tells stories, I'm trying to understand the subjective.
That would be cool.
The subjective experience of the hearing impaired, because the truth of that needs to come out in the character.
And then we're going to switch.
Hello. Oh, you can finish?
No, go ahead.
So what we want, I'm a big fan of Dog and Alyx communicating through sign language. I'm curious what you think. So the idea is that before Alyx met Gordon Freeman, this is only for people who understand Half-Life, that she had a crush on someone who was hearing impaired. So she taught Dog how to sign so she could practice. And even though she's, something happened, maybe that person is off fighting the Combine someplace else, but that's why she and Dog would start signing with each other when they wanted to communicate without making noise or communicate without other people knowing. So that's an idea of adding, starting to bring signing into our games and give us the excuse to build the technology for signing.
The most important thing with a game is to capture the deaf, both hearing and deaf emotions by using facial expression in the game. So for example, Alyx is angry, you would want to know that. If Alyx is sad, you want to know that. If Dog maybe themselves is doing something emotional like
Wally.
Raleigh?
Wally.
Wally? Yeah.
Character Wally.
Something like Wally, yeah. Wally is very emotional, and it's easy to see that and notice that. So that's what you want to convey with, with deaf people.
Do you like as some of you are fans of Half-Life, do you like the idea of Alyx having that desire to learn signing? I mean, is it kind of cool or is it just kind of random?
the interesting thing is that just to recognize in a game, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, they know sign language. That was pretty cool. Not enough to answer though.
So what would the relationship difficulties be?
Between
Alyx? She has a crush on this person who's hearing impaired. Did you see the movie Four Weddings and a Funeral? Where the woman has a crush on Hugh Grant's brother, and he's hearing impaired. So she goes off and tries to learn how to sign. So I'm sort of stealing that idea. Do you know the movie?
I know the movie, I can't remember the title, but it was about 4 years ago that I saw it.
So now
But
it's,
yeah, that's logical. That's how a lot of young people become interested in deaf people.
so I'm gonna have to be done here in just a second, but can you give me a sense of what the problems are when the hearing become romantically interested in the deaf? Like what's a story that everybody knows?
Well, geez, I would say something like hearing people don't sign like deaf people. They don't have the same sort of cultural nuances that deaf people have, you know?
They
You know,
use
it's
a
not
Yeah.
only learning sign language, it's also learning the culture, learning, oh, I can't just call the person and talk to them. I've got to do something different. I got to learn how to not only sign, but I also have to learn how to type message. I have to do that, although that's more common now than it was before.
And also, I would say that if the person learns sign or whatever on the internet, maybe they don't know how to communicate exactly, almost, but the face might not be there, and the face is important until they're around deaf people.
what's it like?
And, go ahead. Also, talking about cultural things, sometimes when you have a hearing person, they use a term like hearing impaired. Instead of, some deaf people take it as an insult because it's not like they're impaired. A more politically correct term is deaf.
Okay.
So it implies broken. So it depends on who you talk with too in the deaf community or the hearing impaired community. Or sometimes it's like the person might say to you, I'm not hearing impaired, I'm deaf. And you would know that culturally it's correct for them to be called deaf. It depends on each individual, in
I
Rob
guess
says.
if you want the truth of the character to come out, you probably want to hire a deaf consultant with a theater movie background.
What when somebody who wasn't born deaf argues with somebody who has been deaf, what is that? How does that come across? Like when they're having a fight, does it seem mildly comical, or like the you're not a participant? You're watching this. You're a deaf person watching this. Are you sort of rolling your eyes at the awkwardness of the exchange? What does it feel like to watch?
Well, one thing you would see is frustration.
See frustration.
I want to yell at this other person, but that other person doesn't understand me, and I want them to understand me. So there's frustration. So there would be that, definitely.
How do you deal with the frustration of communication?
Well, it's like a lot of interruptions, a lot of feedback. A lot of interruptions with sign. There's, might be hand waving to get somebody's attention. I don't know.
You argue with your hearing
You argue
parent who
with
don't
your-
know sign language.
Hearing
how do you
peers
deal
who
with
don't
it?
know sign language. What happens, you guys? Well, I haven't had that experience. I missed the beginning of what you said.